All right. And we are back. Thank you for joining in with us today. This is part 2 of Daring Dialogues. I'm your host, Shantae Charles. And today we're going to be looking at the book again, Why So Many Gods? And we're going to learn about the religion called Jainism. The beautiful thing about studying the arts is that you get a chance to learn about all of these kinds of religions as you go through art school, and you get to learn. One of the first things they teach you is that art is belief. Art is belief. And I know a lot of people don't understand that, but art is spiritual and art is belief. And no true artist really creates apart from what they believe. No true artist really creates apart from their own spiritual self. So when a person says, I'm an artist, and they're creating, they're actually taking the essence of who they are, or the essence of their spirit, and they are injecting that into whatever they create. Which is why I say you can't just take in art, right, without taking in the spirit of that person, or the spirit of what that person was trying to release. So when you have artists who are, for example, under the influence, they're under the influence of something, that creative energy gets infused into their music or their art. All right. And so this is why, especially with music, this is why when you hear certain things, it can invoke in you a certain mood or a certain feeling, not just because of the specific keys that the artist is plucking. Because if you study music theory, you know that keys have colors, that when you play them, right, a part of, for example, a part of with the blues, that actually comes from the fact that when you play certain notes, the notes in energy and in color are blue. That's why it's called playing the blues, right? And so when you play music, music has color. It's releasing something. It's releasing an energy. But it's not just the music itself. We know that certain keys and certain chords, I know musicians who are on here today can attest to this. Certain keys and certain chords can evoke certain emotions in people. All right? So when we talk today about religions, this is a part of what people need to understand, because cultures all over the world, listen to this, they don't separate their art from their religion. We do that in the West. Yes, we do that in the West. So when someone worships in other cultures and they create something, say it's music, say it's a statue of their god, all right? In the West, we would call that statue art. And we would clean it up, and we would put it in a museum, and we would sell it to unsuspecting Westerners. Westerners would take that piece of art home and put it in their house, not realizing that that was maybe a temple god, or that was maybe a household god of someone in another country, and they actually worshipped that object that we call art. Okay? So, just understand that in most cultures, they do not separate art from their belief, art and religion. In most cultures, their art is connected to their belief system. What they create is connected to their belief system. So I just want to make that clear. All right, before we go into talking about the next religion. So 5 minutes with Jesus. The devotional today here is God is for us. God is for us. What do you think a person's life look like when God is clearly with him or her? So I'll say that again. What do you think a person's life looks like when God is clearly with him or her? What are some signs of a favored life? Now, later this year, I'm actually going to do a intensive course on favor and hate. So I'll be giving you all some details about that, but it'll be later in the year. It's going to be an intensive course on understanding favor and understanding hate because they are connected. She says, let me suggest a few things. Signs of a favored life. We might get the job when we apply for it. Our marriage might get better and better as we fall more in love each day. Our children honor God with their lives and never turn their backs on him. We are in unshakably good shape financially. You get the idea. If God is with us, life should work out well, right? This is what people teach. This is what a lot of people teach. But our Old Testament friend Joseph tells us of a different story of favor. This is the story of favor that sometimes if you have not been through it, you cannot possibly imagine that this would actually be representative of favor. Because we have been taught if God is with you, then your life should be going well. If God is with you, then you should have all the money that you need. If God is with you, right, then you shouldn't be having any drama. If God is with you, then everybody really should, get along with you pretty well. If God is with you, you wouldn't be going through all these problems. If God is with you, the ground would not be falling out from under you if God is with you. But a detailed study of scripture kind of shakes that premise because Joseph wasn't doing anything to harm anyone. But he was the consistent object of harm. Somebody needs to get that. Well, if you were living right, nobody would be trying to harm you, right? Joseph didn't do anything to anyone. He didn't do anything to anyone. So God had a plan. God had a dream that he dropped into Joseph. Joseph declared that dream. And from that point on, his life was never the same. Joseph was not the originator of the dream. It was not Joseph's selfish ambition. It was a God dream dropped into Joseph that Joseph then declared and released into the earth, which did this. It set in motion his destiny. This is why we have to be careful of what we declare. All right? And when we declare it. We first meet Joseph in Genesis 37 when he's just 17 years old and his 10 older brothers hate him with a passion. Here's a principle of favor that I'm going to talk about and I'm going to do an in-depth teaching on later this year. But we have to understand that hate is what drove Joseph's revelation life. If you go back and read Genesis 37, Joseph did not begin to dream until his brothers hated him. So your haters are there for a reason. This is why I'm not getting rid of my haters. I'm like, hey, you're fueling my dream life. You're fueling my revelation life. You're allowing God to see your hate so that he can begin to open up my understanding. And then I began to dream things that I wouldn't have otherwise dreamed had you not decided to hate me. Do you notice that Mark Zuckerberg doesn't talk about his haters? Let that sink in. Do you notice that Bill Gates does not have a conference about getting rid of his haters? That's a Selah moment. I know. They don't have conferences on that. You know why they don't have conferences on that? Because they have learned to channel their energies into their creativity, into their innovation. So I'm not going to spend time stopping people from hating me. I'm not going to spend time chasing after people who hate me. What I am going to do is I am going to understand, according to scripture, that my dream life is being fueled by what's being put out into the atmosphere that may be against me. God knows how to take that same energy and put it into me in the form of a dream. Joseph was his dad's favorite. Jacob didn't even try to hide the fact. And Joseph was spoiled, oblivious to what seemingly what we might call obnoxious. Joseph was simply a young teenager who had received revelation from God that he did not know what to do with. Joseph was not ever expecting his family to turn on him because of a revelation. It wasn't something that entered Joseph's mind. If you read the scriptures thoroughly, you don't see a pattern of Joseph was mischievous, or Joseph was boastful, or Joseph had an attitude with the brothers, or Joseph was a snitch. No, Joseph was the person who was set over the affairs of his father. And people don't talk about this, but if you study it, you'll see this. Joseph was set over the affairs of his father because the other firstborn, Reuben, had dishonored his father. Otherwise, it would have been Reuben's position. But because Reuben had dishonored his father by sleeping with his father's wife, the position was taken from Reuben and given to Joseph. That is why Joseph was leading. Not just because he was his father's favorite, but because as the other firstborn of Rachel and not Leah, he was actually the next person in line of authority. Okay? So, the brothers envied this. They envied the fact that Joseph was the one leading. And when they saw a chance to get rid of him, they took it. The brothers threw Joseph into an empty well to let him die. But they ended up selling him, as we know, to slave traders heading for Egypt. When the traders sold Joseph to Potiphar, a captain of Pharaoh's guard, we see this phrase for the first time. The Lord was with Joseph. Being sold into slavery was not a sign that God had abandoned him. Let that sink in, Black America. Being sold into slavery was not a sign that God had left Joseph. Then the wife of his boss tried to seduce Joseph. When he resisted her, she accused him of rape. He was thrown into prison. Again, we see the phrase, the Lord was with Joseph. Being accused and being thrown into prison is not a sign that God is not with you. If the Lord were really with Joseph, wouldn't we expect him to defend Joseph even when he did the right thing? Joseph did well in jail. He was put in charge of other prisoners, and after several years, he was given the opportunity to interpret dreams for two of Pharaoh's former servants who had also been thrown into prison. When one of the servants was about to be released, Joseph had a simple request. Will you please mention me to Pharaoh and tell him that I didn't do what I was in prison for? The man forgot. Joseph spent 2 more years in prison. Long story short, Joseph was finally released, found himself face to face with the brothers who had betrayed him, and he made this remarkable statement that a lot of people know today. There's even a song about it, right? You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. May we, like Joseph, trust that God does that same thing today. No matter what is happening in our lives, our sovereign Redeemer is at work for our good. He was at work for our good. This is what God tells Joshua, Joshua 1:5. He says, as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. Here it is again. Jesus says in Matthew 28, verse 20, I am with you always to the end of the age. Understand that God is for you. People might not be for you. Circumstances might not be for you. You might find yourself in a predicament and you're looking around and you're saying, what in God's name is going on? But in spite of all that, please know and understand that God is for you. So we're going to start Jainism today. And I don't believe that we're going to get through it, but I want to show you this symbol here at the top. Let me see if I can bring it a little bit closer for you all to see. See that symbol there, that hand? People are now wearing that. They have it in earrings. They've got it in necklaces. It's found in a couple of different religions. But it has to do with it's a amulet. It will be considered an amulet, and it's supposed to be a form. It's supposed to be a form of protection against the quote unquote evil eye. So if you see someone wearing that, please make them aware that it has ties to mysticism. We know it has ties to this religion here. But it's supposed to be a form of self-protection against an evil eye. Well, we don't need a protection against an evil eye because guess what? God's eyes are everywhere, beholding the good and the evil. And that around your neck or on some earrings is not going to protect you from evil. So if you're a Christian wearing that, I would advise you to get rid of it. So let's talk about Jainism. Jainism is one of the oldest religions in the world. It all started with 24 Tirthankara, the guys who started the religion. All right. Lord Mahavira was the last, and he's the one who made the religion what it is today. Jainism is spelled Jainism. Okay. The first of these Tirthankaras was a guy named Lord Rashaba. They believed that he invented things like marriage, family, law, states, arts and crafts, math, cooking, towns. It's basically everything that runs our society today. They think he invented it. Okay. Lord Mahavira was born about 2,600 years ago. He looked around at the culture he was living in and realized that they needed to expand their code of conduct. He did this and implemented it into the daily life of his followers. Mahavira was a prince. He had anything he wanted at his fingertips, but he wasn't really interested in the stuff. He tried really hard to make sure he never hurt anything. His parents died when he was 30, and he became a monk. He spent the next 12 years meditating. Think about that. That's like the time it takes you to go from 1st to 12th grade. He spent 12 years just meditating. He went through some really hard stuff during this time. For example, some people came up to him and stuck thorns in his ears, but they say he never had a hard feeling toward those people. He thought that it happened because of a bad karma he had from past lives. At the end of the 12 years, he had blocked out, they call it shaded, all the bad karma and became Kaval Gyan. That's infinite perfect perception of things, infinite perfect knowledge, infinite perfect power, and infinite bliss. At this point, Mahavira started preaching. He did this for 30 years. He had 11 disciples and organized a structure to the religion. There were monks, nuns, male lay followers, and female lay followers. Those 4 groups combined are called the Sangh, S-A-N-G-H. It is the supreme body. They are still structured this way today. When Mahavira was 72, he fasted to death and got nirvana, death without being reborn again, and became a siddha, or a liberated soul. So this is what they believe, all right? Jainists believe in compassion, friendliness, and love. They try to watch out for the good of everybody and everything, literally. They think no God exists. However, their founder, Mahavira, was deified after his death. They think you get saved by denying yourself pleasure. They think and believe that you should practice nonviolence. They think life involves constant and infinite misery. They think we are helpless in this world. Things, friends, family can't share our trials with us or free us from our fears. They think we are alone, that we don't belong to anyone and no one belongs to us. They think the soul and the body are 2 totally different things. That's why we shouldn't be afraid. They think the body is dirty and the home of disease. They think we are incarnated. So, Jainism believes that the universe is eternal. It was not created. So in Jainism, there is no God in the sense of the creator. An individual is rich or poor, strong or weak, happy or sad, all because of his karma. You should be working to stop the flow of karma and shade whatever karma you have in you. You shade the karma through quote unquote right faith, right knowledge, and right conduct. When you shade your karma, you become a siddha. This is God. They prayed to all siddha collectively and not by the names they had when they lived on the earth. The concept of nonviolence is the most important one in Jain. It includes physical as well as mental and verbal violence. The thought of violence is the same as actual violence to them. Also, the concept of nonviolence is for all living beings, plants, insects, animals, or human beings. All Jains should observe 5 vows. Naturally, nonviolence is on the top of the list. These are their 5 vows. Ahimsa, which means don't kill. Satya, which means don't lie. Acharya, which means don't steal. Brahmacharya, which means don't have sex. Women are the cause of different types of evil, they believe. And Apargrapha, don't be materialistic. Jain monks and nuns are not allowed to have any worldly possessions. Jain believers that aren't monks or nuns are allowed to have stuff, but only what is needed. They can't have any attachment to it, and they still have to try to observe all 5 vows as much as possible. Jains contribute a lot to charity. So think about their 5 vows, okay? Don't kill, don't lie, don't steal, don't have sex, don't be materialistic. Those are their 5 vows. The followers are called Jains. Enlightened Jains are called Jinas. How does a Jain become a Jain? By following the beliefs, living a life of non-violence. What is the attraction to this religion? Non-violence. What is the goal? Freedom from attachment to people and things, overcoming karma. How does it look like Christianity? Lying and worldly attachments are wrong. Pride is evil, and so is killing. They want to be overflowing with love and friendly toward everyone and never ungrateful. How is it different from Christianity? We don't think it's wrong to kill for food and necessities. Obviously, Jains are vegetarians. They are completely works-oriented. There is no grace and no God. The other thing I would say about how it's different from Christianity is the fact that in Christianity, it requires you to not detach from people. It requires you to actually attach to people, namely the body of Christ. It requires you to get in and love people and not detach from them. It requires you to get in and forgive people and not detach from them. If I'm detaching from everybody, I'm gonna come into some conflict with the concept of humanity. Remember, they also think that you're alone in the world. So if I think that I'm alone in the world, then what is my obligation to my fellow mankind or my fellow human being? All right? That is problematic. Okay? That's problematic. To me, it is. We're going to stop there, and we're going to come back and talk next week about the rest of Jainism. But I hope that gives you some things to think about. And we'll come back to that symbol as well next week. I'll bring you guys some visuals for that and tell you a little bit more about that symbol and why believers should probably not be wearing it. Okay? So, this has been another Daring Dialogue. I hope that you have enjoyed. I hope that you've learned something that you didn't think about or know before. And I hope that you will join us again for tomorrow's Daring Dialogue. We'll be back talking about finance and wealth building for entrepreneurs and those who want to do something more with their finances and understand the economy in which we live, especially if you are a Black American. We've been reading from Dr. Claude Anderson's book, Powernomics, and we'll be back in that book on tomorrow, as well as Tools of Titans. So thank you again for your time and attention. I hope that you have a great and wonderful Thinking Thursday. Take care and God bless.